I kind of feel like I'm in a vortex of wind right now. Can you guys believe that it is already June? I mean, half the year is already gone, and it just felt like I blinked and it was gone. I want to talk to you guys all about the month of May and the books that I read. And honestly, you know what? Sit down while we have fun talking about books, because the month of May was a very good month for books. Now, I realize that compared to some people, I might be a little bit behind. I'm reading some books that are kind of older. They're new to me, but I might talk about some of these and you're going to go, wow, I haven't read that book in like 4 years. So if anything, hopefully this video has you wanting to pull these books out and do like a reread, because maybe you forgot about them amongst all the other books that you have read. Let's just get right into talking about them. These are not going to be in any particular order of how I read them. I'm just going to grab and talk. I got around to reading 8 books in the month of May. What? I don't know. I just didn't want to do anything but read. My emotions were kind of like all over the place. You know, I'm training for a run and for like a big race. A lot of my time has just been working on training and running and, you know, muscle strengthening. So when I get home, it's like I just want to kick off my shoes and then just relax with a good book. And that's just kind of been my routine lately. I go and I exercise, I come home, and then I just sit down and chill for a while and read a book. And I know that I can't continue that on because I do have a sewing competition that I know I've talked about in previous videos, and that's coming up in August, and I've got like 0 done for my costume, and I'm starting to freak out about it a little bit, but I gotta get motivated. One of the books I read in May was Wild Love by Elsie Silver. This is book 1 in the Rose Hill series, and this follows Ford Grant and Rosie Belmont, and this is just it's not an enemies to lover, because I feel like they've always been kind of friends, but their dynamic has always been kind of like, you know, just kind of like pick on each other, right? And he was always there for her growing up, because he's best friends with her older brother. And so he was, you know, although he didn't live in Rose Hill, he came and he visited quite frequently, so she would see him all the time. And it was like, as she was growing up, anytime she had a situation that she needed help with, he was always there and he was always helping her. But she didn't really notice it too much, right? Like, he was just there. He was just a constant. It's not something she really thought about. And she would always pick on him, and he would always pick on her, and they would banter, and that was just kind of their friendship thing. A lot goes on. He finds out that he has a daughter, and he ends up taking care of her for a little bit while he's also trying to open up his own studio. And Rosie moves back to Rose Hill after a traumatic experience that happened to her, and ends up getting a job working with Ford and helping build up his recording studio. And so, you know, he tries his best to kind of stay away from her because he's best friend's little sister, sort of thing. And she's just not caring about any of that. And she, you know, she's always just like kind of like railroading him and forcing him to accept. And, you know, and he's loved her for as long as he can remember. Like, from the moment he met her, he loved her. And for the longest time, he just accepted the fact that he was never going to get to have her, that she was forbidden to him. And he thought he was going to be okay with that. And then being put together in close proximity kind of, you know, really gets to them. And they finally, you know, get hit with a stupid stick and realized that they could be together and that it was going to be fine. And it was just super cute. It had some laughs in it. It was a nice palate cleanser from the fantasy romances, and I really liked the chemistry between the two of them as well. And I loved his daughter. She is 12 years old, and she kind of just adds this dynamic to the two of them, and this, like, how they become this found family together. It's the sweetest, cutest thing. And you just see this little girl who's been through quite a bit of hardships herself, just opening up, just beaming, and becoming such a young adult, and getting to experience all of these things that she should have experienced when she was younger and never got a chance to. So She bonds with Rosie, and Rosie kind of becomes her hero in a way. This book went so far beyond just the relationship between Ford and Rosie, and it just had a whole mess of people in it that just warms your heart. Now, Ford's older sister shows up. She's already married and has some kids, so I'm thinking that she might be from another book series that was before Wild Love. I didn't look it up or anything like that, but if anybody watching this knows, why don't you let me know down in the comments below what series that Ford's sister could be a part of. But yeah, I do want to say that I rated this 4.5 stars because I loved it that much. I mean, it wasn't quite a 5-star for me. I'm being a little bit more stingy with my 5 stars. I loved it. It really gave me the feels, but I don't think that this is a book that I'm going to wake up in 6 months and still remember, honestly. It didn't have that much of a influence to me, but it was still a very good read. I enjoyed every second of it. I wasn't bored, and I couldn't wait for the next things to happen. So, good book, and I can't wait to read book number 2. Next, we have Night of the Witch by Sarah Roshk and Beth Revis, and hopefully I'm saying their names correct. So this one I gave 3.75 stars. How to explain this book, I don't really know. I mean, it was a really good book, and it touches on a lot of things that happened to real women in our history. So many women prosecuted because they had a broom and a cauldron that they cooked their soups in, right? Labeled witches because a guy wanted a girl's attention and she refused his advances, so he labeled her a witch and she was burnt at the stake. This follows Fritzi and Otto. Fritzi is a young girl who has her entire coven killed. She blames herself. Now, I don't want to get into the whys in case you guys do want to read this, although some of you probably already have. This was published in 2023. But in case you haven't read it, I don't want to give too much away, but her entire coven was murdered except for her little cousin, who she goes on a mission to save. And in the process, she meets Otto. And Otto is a witch hunter who is kind of disguising himself. He actually wants to get rid of the witch hunters because they killed his mother. And I guess his father was a witch hunter, and he was like a really, really good witch hunter. So, he's been trying to undermine the witch order a little bit here and there, doing little things to sabotage here and there and try to save people as he could, not really believing that witches existed, things like that, until he meets Fritzi and gets to see some of the things that she goes through, and they end up on this big journey where they save a bunch of witches. And it had a lot of interesting things happen, and it definitely kept me reading it and wanting to know what was going to happen and how they were going to get out of the areas that they were at and the possibilities and stuff. Now, the reason why I rated it a 3.75 is because of the romance aspect between Fritzi and Otto. I really didn't feel it, you guys. First off, it felt like insta-love. Okay, it did feel like insta-love. It never really talks about, because you get things from both points of view, from Otto's and from Fritzi's. But when you're in Otto's thoughts and you're with him in his story, he never really talks about Fritzi in his mind. He never really shares why he loves her or what he loves about her. For him, it was just insta love. It was like he saw her and, she's covered in mud and dirt, and he just instantly loved her. And honestly, I can love an insta love story if it was done the right way. And I just didn't feel that with these two. I didn't feel the chemistry between the two of them. I didn't feel the sizzle between the two of them. It was just like they were enemies for 4.5 seconds, and then they were in love, and that's all they wrote. And again, the story was interesting enough for me to want to know what happens, and it was kind of left on a bit of a cliffhanger that has me going, what's going to happen? I'm definitely going to pick up the second book, and I'm definitely going to read it just for that fact alone, but it has nothing to really do with their relationship because, again, I felt it was dry and insta-lovey. They skipped first base and went straight to I'll love you forever, you're my soulmate. And like there was no middle ground. And for me, when I'm reading a romance book, I want the middle stuff. The journey to our love story. There was all of these steps, all of these things that went in there. And for this book, I just didn't see any of those steps. Like you saw A and you saw Z and none of the letters in between. And I feel like when you can't delve into that, it makes it hard to connect to the character you're reading about. When I was doing my May TBR, my mom had picked this book for me, Queen of Roses by Briar Bowley. And this is book 1 in Blood of Fae. Now, this book was published in 2023. Now, I don't know if the entire story is maybe it could be older than that, but I know that this particular book that I'm reading was published in 2023. I had a lot of high hopes for this book, and it ended up only being 3.5 stars for me. The main reason behind that, okay, I loved the MMC and the FMC. So you follow Morgan Pendragon, she's the FMC, and then she meets a guy named Draven. They end up going on a quest together. She kind of acts like she might kind of slightly have feelings for him, but it's overshadowed by other things that are going on in this particular book. And so it kind of throws you off a little bit. Basically, this book and the series kind of reminds me of Blood and Ash and what I wish Blood and Ash would have been. They just did some things that I just didn't like, and it kind of ruined it for me. She is a slave to her tyrant brother, who, you know, she was supposed to have the throne, but because of her Fae blood, she wasn't allowed to, and so it went to her younger brother, and he ends up taking the throne. But he's a complete ass, and he's horrible to his people. And that's Arthur Pendragon. He kind of goes down a dark path, and she's set to, when she reaches a certain age, she's supposed to be sent off to the temple to become a priestess, become the high priestess, and like she's not going to have a life of her own, right? She can't be with anybody. She can't have love, at least for a really long time. And so she kind of gives the fact that her life isn't her own, and she accepts that. But then Arthur goes through this crazy phase where he really wants a sword, and yes, you know it, Excalibur. And so he sends her off onto a quest to retrieve Excalibur, and she ends up with a couple guards, and Draven is one of them, and that's kind of where their story begins. And a lot of this is just about their journey to get to Excalibur, and a bunch of things happen, and some sad things, and this is really where she finds her strength and her power and her difference away from her brother's influence. I was expecting different things to happen than what actually happened in the book. So it was like the whole time I was reading the book, I was expecting all of this stuff to kind of happen that didn't happen. Now, I am not saying that that's the book's fault. Maybe I was just missing the punchline when I was reading this, but I didn't feel like it happened. And so like I felt like I was waiting and waiting and waiting. Like they make it seem like she goes on this epic journey, and while she's on this epic journey, she meets a group of people led by a certain person, and she's drawn to this certain person, and they help her with her quests and stuff. But that's not what happens at all. Like she goes on the quest, she already has the people with her, and yeah, she meets, somebody else along the way that joins their group, but it wasn't what it was claiming it to be. And I think that got in my way a little bit. If I wouldn't have read the back of it, I don't think I would have had as much of a problem with the book, and I would have been able to get into it more, and I would have enjoyed it. It's just, it didn't follow the back. And so I was expecting things to happen that didn't happen, and that was frustrating for me. So after that, I had to directly go into book number 2, which is Court of Claws. So much better. Solid 4 stars. So good. So much better. Oh my goodness. The romance between Morgan and Draven was just, Oh, it was hot, hot, hot. And they were, oh my gosh, they kind of remind me of Feyre and Rhysand. That's who these guys remind me of. Their relationship, their banter, how she kind of hated him in the beginning, but then didn't end up hating him. I loved all of the new people we got to meet, more of the found family, more found friends. We learned more about the world, of the Fae aspect of it. So we're learning with her, and she's learning that the Fae aren't exactly what she was led to believe that they were, and not everything is as black and white as people would make you think that it is. Downside to this book for me, there was parts where I felt like she got mad at him and went back to hating on him when it wasn't necessary. Some of the things he did, yes, okay, I get it. They're rage worthy, they're angry worthy, right? But not everything he did. It was almost like the authors were trying really, really hard to do that whole come together, pull apart scenario, but the situations didn't always call for it. It was like, wow, you're really blowing this out of proportion. Like, calm down, take a Midol. It's not worth being that angry over. So some of the enemies to lover situations, like, because they would be enemies to lovers, to lovers, to enemies to lovers, to lovers, to enemies to lovers, to lovers again. And some of those scenarios that got them going from lovers to enemies to lovers again felt forced and felt like it was just thrown in there to just add some drama. And if it made sense and if it was done right, then yay, it's great. But you need to chill, chick. Like, breathe. It's not that bad, especially in consideration to everything that he has done for her. If you haven't read this book, let me tell you, Draven moves heaven and hell for her, to save her, to protect her, to keep her safe. Like, the things that this man has done for her, it's like, girl, you need to be a little bit more appreciative. So after reading those two books, I felt like I needed to take a little bit of another palate cleanser, try something different. So I decided to read Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. This is her book one out of her Maple Hills series. And this was so cute. This is so cute. They're both in college. Anastasia is an ice skater and Nate is the captain of the hockey team. In a series of events that happen, the hockey's team rink gets vandalized, and so they ended up having to share a rink with the ice skaters because the ice skaters have had their own rink, and the two of them, end up getting together a lot, and he's just completely drawn to her, following her everywhere. She's, I don't want to say OCD. She has her issues, and her skating partner, because she's part of a pairs team, he's kind of a jerk, but she's very structured. Like, she has a daily planner, and she has to write down her entire schedule. She has to have her entire day scheduled out. And if her day gets off of that schedule or anything like that, she feels unbalanced, and it causes issues. And, and she has a therapist that she has to talk to. And Nate is just so sweet about it. He's just like, oh, here, plan out my schedule too, and we can schedule together. And he buys her a Christmas gift that has an iPad, and not only does he just gift her this iPad, but he puts all of these apps and all of this stuff on here to where she can be able to FaceTime easier with her therapist whenever she needs to. He puts on this whole scheduling app thing and sets it all up for her so that she can have her schedule so much closer to her. So he doesn't make fun of her on the fact that she has to have everything structured. He accepts it about her, and he helps her with it, and they kind of help each other because he has a crap dad, and he doesn't know what it's like to have a real family that loves him. And so when she accepts him and tells him that she loves him, and it does something to him because he's never really heard it in that way before. And so it's like they kind of heal each other. It was so good. And again, the found family, because she's with Nate and he's the team captain for the hockey team, she gets to meet all of these other guys, everybody on the hockey team, and his best friends that he lives with, and they just all grow together. And she realizes that she literally has a group of guys who would do anything to help protect her and keep her safe too. And so she didn't just get Nate, but she got the whole hockey team, and they're all there for her to be supportive. And it was just a cute, heartwarming story, which is why it got 4.5 stars, because it was totally worth it. It was, oh man, it had me blushing. It had plenty of spice, plenty of romance, plenty of back and forth. And, you know, it wasn't an insta love, you know, they kind of, it was like a more of a, I don't necessarily want to say a slow burn, but it was slower, and just a lot of great moments between the two of them that just had you going, just made you feel all melty. I like feeling melty. After that, I was ready to get back into the Blood of Fae series with Morgan, Pendragon, and Draven. When book 2 ended, I was just like, really? Why, Morgan? Why? But book 3 kind of made up for it a little bit. I gave this one a 3.75 stars. It was a good book. I will say that Morgan and Draven are pretty much separated for most of the entirety of this book because of her dumb, stupid choices, which at least she admits that she was dumb. They did manage to weave in ways where the two of them got to have interactions together through dreaming. That was nice. But I felt like after book 2, this one just kind of backpedaled a little bit, went back more down to what we were seeing in book 1. And again, after the events and everything that happened in book 2, I was just expecting book 3 to be at an all-time higher level, right? Again, I don't want to give too much away, because if I say too much about this book, then it's definitely going to give away plots for book 1 and 2 for those who haven't read it. So I don't want to do that. But I can just say that that Morgan and Draven spend most of the time in this book, all the way until like practically the very, very end. There's still character growth and there's still relationship growth between them. You know, it took until this book for Morgan to realize just how much Draven means to her. It was like she needed to be, in a way, the separation needed to happen, even though it wasn't the greatest in my opinion. I could see that it needed to happen because she needed to go through all of this stuff in her head, and she needed time and space away to figure out where her heart was. And then that was when she realized that her heart was with Draven, and all the things that had happened before that had originally upset her, she realized they were exactly what she wanted. Now, it might not have been the choice might not have been given to her, but she accepts it now. She realizes that it is what she wants, and she wants to be with Draven, and she loves him. A lot of character growth did happen in here, and a lot of relationship growth as well, considering the fact that they weren't together. So, I mean, kudos to the authors for making so much character growth and so much relationship growth between two characters that aren't even really together in the book. So, I mean, that's a lot of skill right there, if you ask me. So then I went into the last book of the Blood of Fae, which is Night of the Goddess. And this one, this one was a 4.5 star read for me. This one was so good. Kind of reminded me in a way of the last book in the Throne of Glass series, right? There's these battles going on, these horrible things that are happening, people that you liked in the series dying, and you don't, and like you're worried, you don't know who's gonna live or die, and like they're in this last battle, and you're like biting your teeth, you know, you're biting your fingernails, wondering who's gonna, the next one's gonna die, who else are we gonna lose, and you're bawling your eyes out, and the battles are being set up like they're not going to survive, and you're trying to just harden your heart to Morgan and Draven because you don't even know if they're going to come out of it in the end. My only hiccup is the story kind of went a little wonky. They were like, I don't want to give stuff away, especially to people who haven't seen this, but the twists in plot and storyline towards the end, they definitely had me going, whoa. It almost makes me want in like 6 months or whatever to do a reread of this and see what kind of Easter eggs that I can find now that I know what I know from having read all of the books. But again, such a good book. It made me cry and cry and cry. And then at the end, just like in the Throne of Glass series, right? You're with your characters at the end of it. After the blood has done falling, right? And you're looking at the carnage and you're just trying to pick yourself up after all of your loss. It's just heart-wrenching. But the love between the two of them was just amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. They were there with each other throughout this entire book. They had each other's backs. They stuck together. They figured it out together. They kept the faith together. They dealt with their pain together. You're definitely going to want tissues for this series. But overall, I would have to say, if I had to rate the entire series, all 4 books, I would have to say that all in all, it would be a 4-star series for me. I do want to say, and I didn't say this when I was reading the first book, but there are some trigger warnings in the series. So before you start it, there is a page in the back of each of the books that talk about the trigger warnings. So I would check your trigger warnings and stuff before reading the series. Now, there's another series coming out. Okay, well, it's already out, but I think there's 2 books in the series out, and the 3rd one is coming out in this month, and it's titled On Wings of Blood. It happens after the events of these 4 books, but I'm told that it's its own type of story, even though you're gonna hear names and things from characters that you met in the Blood of Fae series. You can still read them as a standalone. Yeah, I'm definitely picking up On Wings of Blood series and reading that. I'm not exactly sure when, but I'm definitely going to pick up the first book and give it a try. And because if it's anything like the Blood of Fae series, hands down, it's going to be amazing. I already know it. Now we're going to talk about the last book. Oh my gosh, it blew me away. Now, I cannot speak for everybody. We're all different. But for me, this was God tier level book. Okay, if I could give this 11 stars, I totally would. It was, oh man, I ate up every second of it. And that is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. This book, you guys, 6 stars. 6 stars. God tier book. This is the first God tier book I've read in the year 2025. So this one holds a special place in my heart. And I love Kingfisher, who is the MMC. I absolutely love Kingfisher. He is a tortured soul. He has been through so much, and he just feels like it's like he's accepted his fate. This is what's going to happen to me. I'm just going to, push everybody away and then fade off into nothing. Saris, she's like, I'm not accepting that. Smack, smack, smack. Grow up, dude. We're going to fight this. And a lot happens in this book, and the journey that the two of these guys go on, just wow. And it definitely has a little bit of an enemies to lovers trope to it. And I love it. I love the banter between the two of them, and I love the fighting that the two of them have. Saris has this ability to manipulate Quicksilver, which is kind of a important power in the Fae world. It opens all of these portals so that Fae can transport from different realms, different worlds. And something happens and that Quicksilver gets shut down. And so there's Fae trapped in all sorts of different places. And she has the ability to change everything. And so she ends up in the Fae world through a series of events and meets Kingfisher. And he is tasked with trying to help her harness her ability for the Quicksilver so that she can help his kingdom and then be able to get home to her brother. Now, I'm going to say something. Okay. I have read so many quick reads comments on, not on this book, but on other books They say things like, oh, I couldn't get into this book because the writing was so horrible. I get that, but this book proves to me that you can get past that and still end up with a God tier book. Because I will admit, the first chapter of this book was really hard for me. I studied for a long time. I wanted to be a book editor, and I'm writing my own book. And so I'm not like these people who are like, oh, I don't care. I don't have brain cells. Like, and they joke about it, right? They're like, oh, I don't have brain cells. Like, I can read this book and I can't tell that it's crap writing. I'm just there for the plot and the storyline, and that's not me. Okay. And when I read the first chapter of this book, I had a really hard time. And here's why. There are two distinctive ways an author writes a book. Okay. There's the first person view. So in the first person view, when you're reading and you're in the perspective of the FMC, the writing is, I picked up this glass. I set this glass down. He looked at me. I looked at him. I pushed him over. He pushed me over, right? You are reading as if you are the person. It's I, me. I stepped up and swiped the glass off of the counter, right? That's first person view. Now, third person view, which is another form that some writers like to use, you are reading the book, but you are not in the perspective as if you're looking through their eyes, but more of a third person view, like you're seeing them do these actions. So then it's like, she swiped the glass off the counter. She pushed him away. She pulled him close. She loved him, right? Like it's all she, they sort of format. Now, this book could not decide if it wanted to be a first person view or a third person view. Sometimes it was like, I'm going to grab this, but then it was like she grabbed over here and I did and she and I got so confused. And the very first page of the book, I kid you not, I had to read it out loud to my husband, trying to make it make sense because it didn't. She was trying to describe the building and how like its shape and how it looked, and I was completely stumped. And so I read it to my husband, and he was stumped. And we were literally, I kid you not, we were drawing diagrams on a piece of paper using the author's description of the city, the beginning world city. We were literally drawing it, trying to make it make sense, and even then we couldn't do it. It made no sense. So eventually I just had to give up, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna grin and bear it, and I'm just gonna read this book and everything's gonna be fine, even though I'm like, it was bugging me so bad. I got through the first couple chapters. She gets into the Fae world, she meets Kingfisher, and then it was like I didn't even notice. It didn't matter. It didn't matter what view. I don't care. First person, third person, weird combobulation of all of them. It didn't matter to me. The rest of the writing was good. They used good words. It was very well written in the aspect of just the writing itself. It was very well written, and it was just having to adapt to the fact that the author couldn't decide which point of view that they were wanting to write on, and that pulled me out of the story in the beginning. But then, like I said, once events really got started, after that, it was like not even that could pull me out of the story. Okay, and that says something about this book, because normally I would not be able to finish a book if the writing was bugging me that bad. Like there's no way. Okay, I'm telling you, I'm here for the plot. I edit people's books all the time. I can easily read a book that has a few, misspelled words here and there, or maybe a sentence here or there that kind of doesn't make sense, or even a book that, you can tell that they played it soft in their writing, right? They didn't want to adventure out with different words and different themes and things like that. They just stuck to the very basics, right? I can read those books and still enjoy them. But when you get into something that's so back and forth on something that bad, I'm telling you, I would not be able to finish a book. But this book was just so good that despite that, I could not put it down. And then it was like I completely forgot that it was even in different perspectives. I just accepted it, and I was just like eating it up like my favorite Snicker bar. Okay, I was just eating it up and loving every second of it. And after I finished it, and I finished this in a day, by the way. I literally finished this book in a day. That I couldn't stop. And it's been a while that I have read a book this thick in a day. I just don't have time usually, but I just ate it up. And my husband's like, once I finished the book, he's like, yay, I get my wife back. And I'm like, I'm sorry, babe. I was like, but I love you, and you're so supportive of me and my books. And I think in some small ways, every book that I read after that was having to be in the shadow of Quicksilver, and I almost feel sorry for them. I mean, and who knows, maybe some of my ratings were affected because of that. I don't feel like they were, but you never know, right? Like, after reading a God tier book, it can be kind of hard to get into another series. And I did take a bit of a break before I started the next book that I read, because I needed time to just assess my feelings after this one. And the way it ended, I cannot wait until November when book 2 comes out. Like, November's going to take forever, but you can guarantee I'm going to be in the front of the line on buying that book. And I will probably even do a whole vlog on reading book 2 of this, because at this point, it is my most anticipated read of 2025. Well, that includes all the books that I read in the month of May. I got through 8 books. I am so proud of myself. I was just enjoying reading. And I mean, and of course it did help that, this series, the pages were kind of small. There's only, I think there was like 300, the book was like 340, 360. Anyways, I have a reading vlog coming for you guys in my next video, so I hope you guys will enjoy that. If you're new to my channel, I really hope that you will subscribe and stick around. And don't forget to like my video. I would really appreciate that too. I'm just all about hanging out and just talking about books and having some book friends so that we can all geek out together on our favorite books. And whenever I'm having a rough day and I just don't want to be in my skin, I can just lay down, curl up in my favorite blanket, and just get lost in another world. And sometimes some of the things that the FMCs go through and these books, just, I come out of it like, you know what? I don't know why I was complaining about my horrible crap day. At least I didn't have to go through that, right? Like, like currently I'm reading the Zodiac Academy series. I just finished book 2. I'm vlogging the whole thing, by the way. All 9 books. First time through them. It's not going to be a reread vlog. It is first experience of Zodiac Academy and the things that these guys go through. Whew. But yeah, you're going to want to definitely stick around and hear my thoughts in that vlog. You're not going to want to miss it. So anyways, I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of their week, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.